that reading about the bronze snakes in the wilderness is a sort of puzzling one in a way. It almost looks like kind of magic that there is. You kind of wonder how it fits into the Hebrew scriptures. But it certainly does, and it's part of the very complex early development of the Jewish faith. Some parts of it really overlap with some of the neighboring religions of the area, whether that's Egypt or Jethro and his family, or the Mesopotamians and so on. And you know how we have the name for a couple of the angels, categories of angels, let me say, which we call the seraphim and the cherubim. Well, the seraphim, that word is the same as this word for these snakes. They are, if you had to see a picture of the seraphim, they wouldn't be, and maybe you have actually seen that in some places, a snake with wings on it. That is what the seraphim will be. So somewhere, and we don't fully understand exactly what all those angles are at this couple of thousand years later. But it does remind me of the way that something can be, on the one hand, poisonous, and on the other hand, healing. And I think of a drug like digitalis, which could kill you. You know, I don't know what that flower is that it comes from, but that can kill you. It's poisonous. And yet, if you take it in just minute amounts, it's used for heart arrhythmia. So it's life-giving, either poison or life-giving. And so these snakes are perhaps a little like that. Either they could kill you, or else they could heal you, depending on how you deal with it, how you see it, what's your perception. And looking at that perception, I think that's part of what we have in the gospel. Jesus refers to that incident in the wilderness as Moses picked up those snakes, so will the Son of Man be picked up. So it looks like it's poison, like he's dying, like it's suffering, but actually, if you see it in the right way, it's healing. And I thought of some of the ways in which perception makes not only a difference, but a huge difference to us in our time. I've just been reading, or am reading through the book the book of that movie, The Imitation Game, the book that gives rise to it, the story of Alan Turing and the Turing machine, first digital computers that they were coming out of the Second World War. And thinking that how 100 years, it's only 100 years since, if you were to go back 100 years, you wouldn't know what a computer was. I mean, a couple of 100 years, you barely know what electricity was. 100 years ago, you still wouldn't know what X-rays could do. You wouldn't know about TV, for example. We wouldn't know about anything. I don't know what the date is of a telephone. But my point is that with all of those are forms of electromagnetic radiation or waves, different applications of them that achieve incredible things. But people just couldn't see it at the time. And if you'd said there will come a time at which you could calculate billions of addition sums in a second, they would just look at you like, maybe you've been bitten by something because it couldn't possibly be. Or that you could get a picture that transfers right around the world within a few seconds. It would be unimaginable. Or the power could be brought across many miles and run factories like this. It wouldn't have been conceived of. So but you probably, almost anybody in this room could, if you did go back 100 years and you were to explain how that is possible, people would be amazed. They'd say, yes, I can see how you could possibly do that because of what you know. It's a simple little matter of perception that we all have in this room now, which they didn't have then. So here's Jesus in this Gospel of John, and he's got this very unique and special way of speaking about the Holy Spirit. It's almost as if he's seeing the Holy Spirit as a kind of cloud which is coming down like this upon the earth from heaven. So it is possible for any of us to have that cloud, that divine cloud of the Holy Spirit come into us and fill us and change our perceptions, for example. So when he says, the word here is be born again or be born from above, that can be translated either of those two ways, be born again or born from above as the Holy Spirit comes down upon us. And when it is, even though it's invisible to us, like electricity, like electromagnetic radiation, like X-rays, it's invisible to us, yet it gives us a completely different way of perceiving things. We can see or somehow be part of God's purposes in the world. So this is what this passage is about. He's talking here to Nicodemus, who has seen the miracle of the wedding at Cana by this point in John's Gospel. And Nicodemus can only call him Rabbi. He says, you're very impressive. These wonder works that you can do, this way that you're speaking. And Jesus corrects him because he's saying, you can't see. What is the more important thing here is that I am God incarnate. Yeah, I'm not just a good rabbi. I'm not just a miracle-working rabbi. I'm the Son of God, and you can't see that yet because you haven't been born from above yet. So for all of us, this wonderful gospel and that curious reading from Numbers about the snakes is a question of what is our perception. Have we been born from above? Do we have God's guidance, the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and the perception of the Holy Spirit? Because that makes 100% difference to every decision we will make if we can see things from God's point of view. Sometimes even something that is bad, when we can see it from God's point of view, we can see how it could possibly be a healing thing in our lives or in the lives of somebody else. So let us open, during this Lenten season, open our hearts to being born from above, to the Holy Spirit filling us, giving us that spiritual perception, that God point of view on everything that we experience. In the name of Christ. Amen.